Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this video we will build this calculator app using Flutter. We won't use any state management tools, but rather we use only setState inbuilt method that is provided by Flutter. So let's begin. So as you can see, I have created a project, so I will just simply delete this boilerplate code and start from scratch. So first we need a main function to execute our program. So if you don't know, Flutter project or Dart program start executing from this main function. In this main function we need a top level function named run app. So if you can see, this run app requires an widget. So initially we passed our widget tree here. So from this proportion our app start building. So I will create a separate class for that and pass that in here. So I'll simply create an app.dart file, and inside this file I will create my widget tree. So how I can do that? First I will create an stateless class. So in order to do that I will say stl and then press enter. So it will give me the snippet of stateless class. I will call this class myApp, and then I will pass this myApp function here. So as you can see, the app.dart file has been imported here and my app using here. So now inside this I will pass material app widget. So if you don't know what does this material app, it has some predefined rules or predefined themes that has been already in there. So if you use that, the app will be use that themes, that colors, that other patterns that have been defined here. So here we can pass a parameter called home. So this is also expect a widget. As before, I will create another class that will be, I'll create a file homepage.dart, and inside this homepage.dart I will create a stateful widget. I'll say stf, then press enter. Then if I will call this one is homepage, and what I have to do is pass this homepage here. Okay, my widget tree is ready. Now I have to go here, and in there I need an scaffold. So you might ask why we are using a stateless here, but here we are using stateful, because stateless is immutable, so it doesn't build the UI again. But stateful, any interaction, suppose if we type a button or anything like that, it will rebuild the widget again. So in that case, for that we are using this stateful widget. So scaffold takes a body. So here we can pass anything. So let's call a center widget, and inside the child pass a text widget. Okay, let me just build this application, and while building this application, let's look at our UI. So as you can see, we have multiple buttons here. So if you can remember, this is a column side, and inside a column we have multiple rows. For this we have a text, so for showing our inputs, outputs, expression, and so on. And we have a row here. We have 4 buttons. So all clear button. Initially we will replace this plus minus button with a remove button. Then we have a modulus, and then we have some operator buttons here. So I have created a separate list here. So I have places all the buttons serially. So why I did that, I will explain it later. So for your convenience, for our convenience, I will simply copy that list that I have created, and here our app building has been done. And what I would do is create another file called buttons.dart, and inside this I'll create a class. Okay, so inside these buttons I will create a class named buttons. Okay, then what I would do is create a static variable. So why static? So that we do not have to create any instances or any object for this class. We can directly use the class name, then a dot, then we can access all the properties using the class name and a dot. So in order to do that, so static, our list will be constant, then we have a list of string, and I will name this all buttons, and then I will paste it here. So as you can see, all the things are serially in here. We have all clear button, then we have replaced the plus minus button with a remove button, then we have modulus, divide, then 7, then 8, 9, then multiplication, and so on. So now here what we can do is just remove it there, and we can use a column and a row to build our application. So before that, what I want to explain is, so row and column both takes children as parameter. Suppose row, and it takes children, but what happens when it doesn't fit all the children here, the render is overflown in the screen. So instead of using row, we will use wrap widget. So what it does, when all the children doesn't fit, it pushes other children in the bottom of this. So if you can see, I will, and then in this children we won't use suppose this one and then other or our buttons, so we won't do that. So instead of, what we would do is to create a map. So how we can do that? So previously we have created this button class, and we have a list, we have a static list of all buttons. So what I would do is, I'll call this buttons class. So now my buttons has been imported. So now I will create dot and access all the properties. Now in this list, from this list I can generate a list of widget. So in order to do that, I'll press map, and then at last to list. What would it do? Then inside this map I will took every single element. What I am doing is, this element over this list of elements, so this map function will iterate over there and create a widget. So once again I'm explaining what is this map function do is, took each element, or it can loop through these elements of this list and build a widget. So what widget we can use here? We can use elevated button, we can use text button, but for this application we will use our outlined button. So as you can see, it's suggested here. At first I will create a empty string, and then what would be our child? The child will be our text, and inside this data I'll simply pass e. So this e, so as you can see, this e is a string, all the values here, this is it. So now if we save this file, as you can see, my UI is ready, but this is not what I want, right? This should be in the bottom of this screen. So in order to do that, before that I have to explain, if we use row instead of this wrap, so as you can see, the remaining element doesn't push bottom, that's why this provides an error. So that's why we are using a wrap widget. So when this overflows, the remaining widgets are pushed at the bottom. So now as you can see, it's working. So now what we do to to fit all the widgets in the bottom, what we have to do is wrap this widget with a column. So I'll simply wrap this widget with a column now. So, and inside this column I'll say main axis alignment dot end. So now as you can see, I have got all my buttons here, so it's also pressable. So here at the bottom, right? But this is not it, because there is many 5 or 6 buttons, but we need 4 buttons for each row. So we will also deal with that. So before that, our screen is in light mode, but our app is in dark mode or dark theme. So in order to change our theme of entire app's theme, we have to go to this app.dart file, and inside this material app there is a property called theme, and we can use theme data.dark. So I have to remove this constant, and then we can use this dark mode feature, right? It's awesome. Now let's design this outline button, all the buttons here. So as you can see, we want 4 buttons in this each row. So how we can do that? Here, outline button, we have a property called style, and inside this what I do is dot outline button dot style from. Now inside this outline button style, we have a property called size or fixed size. So this fixed size took a widget as parameter size. So there, as you can see, size took a width and a height. So hence our screen size can be changed depending on the multiple devices. So in order to deal with that, we will take a variable here. So final, I will name it screen width. Then using the media query, of context, I can get the screen width, and also I can get the screen height, but I do not need that right here. So in this width, so what I would do is screen width, and I will divide or multiply it by 0.20. So my screen, my 4 widget or 5 widget fits in here. And what would be the height? I'll took the height as 60. And if we save this file, as you can see, we got 5 widget, because we are dividing it into we're multiplying it by 0.20. That's mean 5 widget will be fit in this row. But as you can see, our elements or our buttons are there is no gap in between our buttons, but inside there is few gaps of each button. So in order to deal with that, what we do is we will wrap this outline button with a padding widget, and as instance.all, I will give it 4, not 8. So now as you can see, there is a small gap between all of my buttons, and it's not all perfect, but it's getting a shape. And you can use our other properties and increase decrease sizes of it and build according to it. So now as you can see, this is it, and this is not also perfect, but we get a overall shape of our application. So I will increase the height of this a little bit bigger, and now we can set the size is almost done, but we can do what we can do is we can set the color of our application. So how we can do that? So we have our fixed size, then inside that we can set background color. So we can say colors dot gray. So the entire color has been changed, but we don't want that. What we want is, if you can see here, the 3 button of this top row is grayish or whitish gray, and this operator buttons, this is amber color, or a, what would I say, this is a orange color maybe, and this other buttons, all the remaining buttons are in darkish gray. So in order to do that, what I have done is list all the buttons. So as you can see, we have some front. Okay, I will just copy this buttons and paste it in my buttons folder so that we can render our UI using this buttons. So I will again create a static const list of string. I'll set top row buttons is equals to these buttons, all clear button. Hence I said we will remove the plus minus with a remove button and a modulus button. After that, we'll create another list. I'll say it digit buttons, and I'll simply copy these buttons and paste it here. So I will give all this button in my description so that you can use it easily. So now, hence we have got our buttons. Now we can conditionally render our these colors. How we can do that? So background color, in front of this, what we will do is we will use a ternary operation. So I write buttons dot, so as you can see, we can access the top row buttons dot top row buttons dot contains. What this method or this contains do is checks, is there any element, is there anything in this list or not. So we will pass this this property, hence this button is in there. So it will return a true or false. So if if this or this button is in this top row button, then it will be colored as colors.gray, or else what would do, I will suppose say colors.red. So now as you can see, we have got our top row button as gray and other buttons are in different colors. So what it does is, in this it checks, is this present in this, is this or this string is present in this top row buttons list. If true, then it will set as gray and or red, and hence we don't use to entire property as red. So instead of, we will check another condition. So what it is, buttons dot, this time we will check if it is a okay, we do not created our operator buttons, so we need our operator buttons. So this one, I'll simply copy it, and in this I'll just paste it here. I'll name it as operator buttons and paste it here. So here now we will check that button is operator button or not. So operator buttons dot contains our this and if it's true, then we will set the colors dot orange accents, or else if it's a digit button or this decimal button, then we will say it colors dot gray, and we'll fix it a shade as 900. Now if we save this, and as you can see, we got our colors and overall everything we have got here, but the elements or the text inside this button is not what we have wanted. So what we can do is we can write here and style our text. We will say text style. First I will fix a color. So our color is white. Then I will fix a font size. It's 20. So yeah, that's it, I think. So now if we go there, so as you can see, this is almost our app is almost here, but the 0 button is not how you wanted. It should take place of 2 buttons. I will deal with it later. Before that, let me give it a width, font width, so that it looks bold. Font weight dot bold. If we save this, now I think we got it, and I think text size will be slightly bigger. Yeah, I think that's it. Now what we can do is give a padding to this bottom, left and right, so it looks good in our application. So I will wrap this column with a padding, and instead of edge inserts dot all, I will I will use edge inserts dot only. So it has a property called bottom. I'll give bottom 20, left maybe 5, right maybe 5. Okay, so as you can see, it's elevated slightly. Let me give it 8, and from the right side it should also be giving 8. Okay, it's broken. So what about we give it a 6? I think it's looks okay in this case. Okay, now we have got this, or we can give it a better elevation. Okay, now we have got this. Here we will now deal with this 0. So how we can do that? So hence we have rendered with a condition like this. So we have colored these buttons with a condition. Also we can use the same ternary operations to give a size. So what I would say is, if e is not equals to, if e not equals to 0, then size will be this, and if it's equals to 0, then what will be it? Our size will be width screen width into 0.44, just double of this, and height will be same as 70. If you save this, as you can see, our 0 has got bigger now, but this is not perfectly aligned, so we have to increase the size a little bit. Now I can say it's almost perfect. Now what we do is, as you can see, there is an outline or border in our buttons, but inside our demo there is no outline here, or there is no border side here. So we can also do that. We can edit our, here as you can see we have a side property, and we can see border side dot none. If we save this, our border side has been gone. And what we can do right now is give a shape of this button. So there is also a property called shape, and what it does is take a rounded rectangle border, and inside this border I can pass a border radius that's circular. If you give it 20, then as you can see the shape has been changed, so you can give it a circular size according to your need. I'll give it a 40. Okay, I think it's fine. You can also increase and decrease your apps your button size. Suppose if you give it a 80 and then here also an 80, your button will be much bigger, right? I think it also looks fine. You can change it according to your need or according to your UI. Now what I have do is our UI is almost completed. We just have to take a input parameter here. So in order to do that, so inside this column, so this is our button widget, right? Inside this wrap we have all the buttons. Above that we'll use a text widget, so we can show our input here. So Alt S. So as you can see, input is here. I want it a bolder, so I will style it. So style, I'll say font style. Sorry, not font style, I want it in this style. I will use text style, and then I will give a font size. I will say is 40. 50 would be much better, I think. Yeah, okay. Font weight, okay, let's use it font weight dot bold. Okay, I think it's look good, but it's in center. So if I want it to this right side or end of this screen, what I have to do is this. Inside this column I have to do cross axis alignment dot end. It will push it to the end. All right, and I also want a gap between my buttons and this my input or output file. So what I do is const size box, I will give it a height of 20, and as you can see there is a gap in between my buttons and my input and output file. So I think that's a good user interface. And now our task is to implement functionalities and logic to our application. So we can directly implement logic in this homepage.dart file, but it will be little bit messy, but I will show you how to do that. So inside this on pressed button, so there is nothing happening. So if we press something, that appear will be in screen. So in order to do that, what we have to do is take a variable here. I'll call it string. I'll call it my input, and this is our variable, and I will use this my input inside this text widget. Okay, so whatever we will put there, it will be goes there. But not only that, so we have to implement it here. So how we can do that? So we will take setState, because setState renders the screen again. So if we do not use setState, what would happen? Let's see. So suppose what to do is my input, I will append the what I have pressed. So I have pressed E. So each time I pressed this E will be append here. So but if we press, there is nothing happen, right? So why it's not happening? Because we didn't re-render our application, right? Now if we save this file inside this setState, as you can see, our screen is working perfectly fine. So but there is some problem in here. As you can see, our 8.7 has gone this side left of the screen, but we want it as right side, and we want it as single line. So how we can do that? So in order to do that, what we have to do is wrap this text widget where we are showing our input file, so with another widget called single child scroll view. single child scroll view. What it will do is it will give a scrollable feature, and what will be the scroll direction. Scroll direction will be horizontal. We want to scroll this horizontally. Okay, I'll see axis dot horizontal. Now as you can see, we have a list, but if we press here, it goes in this side, right? So if we want to always focus on this corner or this starting point, what we have to do is call a reverse property, and we will give it a true. And now if we rerun our application, and if we put multiple things here, as you can see, we are focusing on here, and also our UI is not broken, and it's also scrollable. Okay, now let's implement our app's functionality. So as you can see, I have implemented a single bit of functionality here, just appending what I am pressing to my string, but we won't do that in this screen. Instead of, I will create a separate file. So what I will call it a functionality dot. Inside this, okay, inside this we will create a class called functionality. So we will perform all our logical operations here. So first we have to take a static and then a variable name, as we have done it before, static string, and I will say it my input is equals to a empty string, right? And then what I would do is remove it from here, and I also remove it from here, and I will use my functionality, this functionality class. As you can see, the functionality has been imported here, and with a dot I can use my input here. And inside this setState, I won't do anything right now, rather I will put it in empty, and here I will write a method that will be static also, and it will be a void. Then what would be the name of my function? Append input. It will take two parameters. First one is which string I want to append, so the button I have pressed, so I will say it string s. And then what I would do is use a function as parameter. Function, we will use setState as our function parameter. So we will pass the setState from our home page, and here we will re-render our application. So how we will do that? I'll call it setState, and inside this setState we will perform all of our task inside this setState body. Okay, let's go here, and in this on pressed, what we do is functionality dot append input. Here this string is our e, and setState is the setState we have been using previously, this one. So we are passing this setState here. Okay, let's remove it and give it a shape. Now let's come to this functionality. So we can use if else condition to add functionality in our application, but instead we will use a switch case, so it will be much easier to implement. So how we will do that? So I will use a switch, then our parameter s, and inside this block first we will implement this whatever calls this buttons, all these digit buttons. So how we can do that? So in order to do that, what we have to do is so we have to write a case. So let's say it's a case, then in this case we will got a string digit, and we will use when in our buttons property. So buttons buttons. So we have to import this buttons class here, and dot our digit buttons. We will loop through these buttons, and then we will again use this contains property, and our element is this s. So what it does is it gives a string, a single string digit, and if it contains in this s, so if this button is a digit button, what will happen, we will input it my input plus equals to this digit. We will append this one here. So if we restart our application now, and then we have to also give a break here. Okay, let's save it and run it. So as you can see, our button has been working, but no other property has been working because we didn't implement it yet. So our next task is to implement this all clear AC button. So how we can do that? So we can take another case. So in this case, what if this is one is AC, this AC button, so all clear button. So if it's all clear button, what we do, we want to remove all the inputs from here. So my input will be an empty string. So if we save this and take it, if we take a SC, all clear, everything has been cleared. So we have implemented this digit buttons and this all clear buttons. Let's implement this remove last value or back button. So in that case, so I have to copy this case, and inside this case I will simply copy this button, and if our button is this one, okay, I didn't put a break here, so always remember to put a break after your case. So inside this, what I would do is to remove the last element. So the dart string is immutable, that means you can't simply remove the last element. So how we can implement that? So before that, let me give an example. Suppose I have a string Rostom, so we have to remove this last one, right? So we can't, there is no direct method or something like that for removing the last element. So to do that, what we have to do is create a substring. So if we do our my input dot substring, so if we call this method, as you can see, it takes a start and a end. So we have to give two parameter. Where is our substring generated, what would be the starting index and what would be the end index. So in our case, our starting index will be always 0, and what would be the end index. So hence we are deleting the last element. So we will just put our my input dot length -1, so before the last index, all right, or last element of our string. So if we do that, so it will remove our last element. But what about our input is initially empty, like this condition, it will give us an error. So we have to check a condition if my input is not empty. So if it's not empty, then we can use this function, right? And after that we can give it a break. Now if we press this, nothing will happen and there will be no error. But if we press a button, then if we sorry, we just used it, we just declared it here, but we haven't used it yet. So what we have to do is we have to reassign this to my input variable. So now if we save it and if we press this remove button, it will delete the last entered value. And if this is empty and if we press again, there is nothing will be happened. So we have implemented this successfully. Now we have 2 functionalities or 3 functionalities more. So now let's implement this one, this decimal or this dot value. So we will write another case. So what would be our case? So if it's a dot, so what would happen then? So first our string can be empty. So in this situation there is nothing and we can press a dot, right? So in that case we will add a we will, if I will say if my input dot is empty, then what would happen is my input plus equals to a 0 will be popped in front of this input. So 8, 9 and nothing happens. And if we press a 0, not this one, so as you can see a decimal, a 0 and a dot has been appeared. Now what if this is not empty? So we can simply input a dot decimal, right? So what we will do is we'll use a condition else my input plus equals to, we will include a dot in our application. Okay, now if we press 9.8, there is dot, that's fine, but there is a problem. If we press another dot, it's appearing. If we press it another dot, this is also appearing, but that's not right? So we have to add another functionality. So how can we implement it? So here we will take a boolean variable. So I will take it also a static boolean. I will name it is dot used. Initially it will be false. So when we will use a dot, so suppose we have used a dot here, what I would do is dot used is equals to true. I'll make it true, and here also is dot used is equals to true, so that we do not have to use that again. And here what I would do is put a condition, if is dot used, if it's true, then what would do is return, do nothing. Alright, so now restart our application, and now if you press a dot, then other value, if you press again another dot, that won't work, right? But what happens when you add a operator and after that you want to use a decimal value again? In order to do that, I will implement it later. I will show you the condition what happens. Then before that we have 2 things remaining, this equal button and all of our operator button. So let's implement it here. So how can we implement it? Let's take another case. So I will write the case like this one, the first one. So how would I do that? I will say a string, I will call it an operator to op, and then I will use when, then I will use my buttons class, buttons dot, this time I will use operator buttons dot contains what, my this s, right? If this one happens, then first of all a operator button can be a divide, a multiplication, a subtract button, addition button, and this equal button. So when we press equal button, we will calculate our expression, and the other we will append in our string. So first let me use this condition. If our operator op is this equal, so I will implement this later, but if it's not an equal, so what would we do is to append. If it's not equal, then I'll simply append it to my application. So how to do is my input plus equals to this op, right? Control S. Now if we restart this application, 8 9 plus 6 into 6, but equal will be not working, but divide 9. Okay, it's been working, but what about I create multiple this one? So it took all of that, but it shouldn't be like this, right? We have to put a digit or something like that before a operator, right? So we have to calculate, or we have to add functionality like this. So we will take another variable called static bool is operator used. Initially it will be false, right? So before appending it here, so what we will see is I will call it a else if condition, and I'll say it what if is operator used, it is operator used, it has to be false, and it shouldn't be a equal button. So hence we have checked this equal before, so we do not have to do this here. So if its operator is not used, so we have used a negation here. So if operator is not used, then it will put a we will append our operator in our string, and what we would do is operator used is equals to, we will do it true, right? Now if we restart our application, so 9 6 plus 3 6, and as you can see this one is the second plus is not working. So in order to working with that, what we have to do is after pressing a digit button here, when we are pressing a digit, so what we have to do is operator used is equals to, we have to give it a false, then we can again use our operator buttons here. So 89 minus 6 plus 3, as you can see, but we can't use multiple here. If I try to use it, it won't work. So as you can see, our functionality has been implementing perfectly. What about I want to use a 10.3 plus a 3 point here? As you can see, our dot is not working here. So but after a operator, our dot property should work after a digit. So what we can do is when we are using an operator, so what we can do is when we are using an operator, we will simply is dot used, we will make this property false, then we can again use our 3.3, and after that, so before we didn't use a dot product after that, but now we can use a dot product here. But if we again do that, it won't happen. We have to put a operator before using a dot product, right? So it's been working perfectly in this application. So now all of the functionalities has been implemented successfully. Now it's time to calculate our expression, whatever we are putting in here. Suppose this one 6, we want to calculate it, right? So in this equal button, so what would happen when we will press this equal button? So to do our calculation, you can implement it separately, or I will suggest you, for your convenience, we will use this math expression package from pub.dev. So you can search it, and in order to install, just copy this with Flutter, and copy this command, and inside your project open your terminal and paste it here. Okay, our package has been installed successfully. If we go to your pubspec.yaml, as you can see, our math expression package has been installed. Now let's use this functionality, or to calculate, let's use this package to calculate our result, or whatever expression we have got, right? So now what I would do is write a static function. This function will return a string. It will be our result string, and I will name my function is calculate, RESULT, calculate result. This function will take a expression as an input, so a string expression, and what we would do is return a string. So now to use our math expression package, what we have to do is import this path, and here I will paste this import. Now we can use it here. So first we have to parse our expression. So write, as I am writing expression parser, I will say it EP expression parser is equals to, we have to use grammar parser. Then we have to use a context model for evaluating our result. Context model is equals to context model. Then we need to parse this expression. I will call it exp is equals to this ep. We have to, before ep dot parse, and we have to give our input, whatever input we are getting, this expression we are receiving here, expression. Okay, then it's time to calculate our result. So I will create a double variable, double result is equals to this exp dot evaluate. So type would be evaluation type dot real, and context will be our context model. Now our result calculation has been done. Let's return it. So we can just simply return result dot to string, right? Okay, let's check it. So how it's been working. So now we are here. If op is equals to this one, and we don't want an empty expression to be calculated, right? It will be give us an error. And what to do is my input dot is not empty. If this is our case, then what we can do is call our function. So calculate result is give us the expression will be my input, and we have to receive it, we want to receive it as my input, we want to assign it in my input. Okay, let's save it, and if we press equal, as you can see, our result has been showing here perfectly, right? What about we put a integer value? It's also showing as a double value, but we don't want it, right? So to check it's a integer value or not, so what we do is we'll call static a boolean is integer, it will take a double value as input, and if we will mod it with 1, so num mod 1, if it returns num mod 1 equals to, if it's 0, then it definitely a a integer value, right? And return true, and else we will return false, it's not a integer value, right? The body might be casually. If why this is giving me an error, static is integer, double num, if num mod 1 equals to 0, sorry, I didn't have return true here, so okay, now it's perfect. And before returning our result, so here we will check the result is it's an integer or not, right? So what we will check, bool, I'll check if it's integer or not. So I'll say is int is equals to, I'll call this function is integer, and I'll simply pass my result. And if this is a integer, if is integer, then we will return as at integer, return our result dot to int or dot to string, and else what to do is we will return this double result, and we will use as fixed. So we don't want, we want 2 digits after the decimal point. So I think that's it. Control K. If we save it and restart our application, then 9 plus 9 should be 18. Yeah, now as you can see, it is giving me an integer, and if we give a 3 plus 3.3, then it gives me a double as output. Okay, I think that's it. That's our app's functionality to calculate. But there is something we can add or implement to our application in order to not get exception. For example, if we press multiple times equal, it will give an exception because of this condition. So we can simply sort it by using an AND condition. OP is not equals to equal. So now if we press this, and if we press multiple times, there will be no error. And there is another thing, and that is if we 10 plus, and in this situation if we press enter, it will also give an exception because it can't parse it. So in order to fix that, what we can do is we can check the last element of our expression or of our string, so if it's an operator or not. So it can't be an operator, right? So let me rerun this application and write a function. So what would do is it will return static bool is last value op operator. What would we do is it will take a string and it will return a true or false. So I will check if okay, let me just take a length, n is equals to s dot length, and what would we do is we will take another string last string. We will use substring for that. So, or we can directly check using the n-1 condition. So suppose what would be it is our buttons dot operatorButtons dot contains what element will be our s of n-1, the last element. It will return a boolean value. So it will return a boolean value, right? So now we can use this condition upon here. So if it should be, what we can do is sorry, string op. Okay, we can pass here my input, right? And it should be a false value. If it's not a false value, then we can't calculate our expression. Okay, so we will rerun our application. 9 plus, if we give a equal sign, it won't work. If we give a 3, then it calculates perfectly. Okay, I think that's it for our application. A simple and basic calculator. We didn't add too many functionalities. Oh, there is one thing I want to include is that when we put AC, so we have to clear all the things here. So our boolean value should be cleared and our input should be cleared. Okay, so that's it for our application. See you in the next video.